Hey guys, welcome back. I want to finish this week, this is day 7, with reviewing metabolic positioning, but going through what you can expect in a normal movement pattern throughout that continuum, and then how to really maximize your goals along the metabolic positioning continuum. Just a little bit of review. I know this is a big part of our first discussion in the 30-minute introductory video. But metabolic positioning is simply a concept I came up with almost 20 years ago to help explain how we move from either gaining weight or maintaining our weight into the best position to lose body fat. And I mentioned that there are actually ways you can lose body fat faster by either extremely low calorie dieting or really plummeting carbohydrate levels and so forth. But those are very short-term wins, so to speak. Because you end up suppressing your metabolism, you end up losing lean body mass, and if that's your goal, that's not going to help you out. And then over the long term, studies show that it's just simply the least sustainable. So we have to know what those process steps are to get to that place where we're meeting our best goals in the most sustainable way. But again, I want you to know where you're moving along that continuum and how you can kind of control it a little bit in case you want to adjust your goals, moving into a little bit quicker pace, or saying, it's vacation time and I want to pull back a little bit. I don't want to throw away a week, but I want to have a little bit more flexibility or be able to indulge a little bit more. So how can I just adjust myself but still know I'm not sabotaging my goals and so forth? All of that comes with you having an advanced understanding of metabolic positioning. So here we go as a review. Protein, carbs, and fat. Those are the macronutrients we consume, and we have two sets of versions of those. We have the food that we consume, and then we have stored versions of those same macronutrients in our body. So we always start in terms of energy with carbohydrates because typically it's when our bodies are stored to a saturated capacity with carbohydrates that we end up obviously maintaining our weight or even gaining weight. We're in that position where anything we consume more than we need will be immediately stored as body fat because our carb levels are saturated. Internal glycogen levels in our muscle tissue, in our liver, and so forth. So we've moved you to a place now, hopefully you're finishing the first week where your bodies are calibrating nicely to a little bit lower carb level. We still have a good amount of carbs in so that we can keep your metabolism high and your muscle and strength building goals high. But at the same time now, as that's moving along, you are here in what I would consider the center or maybe a little bit more toward body fat loss, somewhere in there. But I want to make sure you know how to control that. So those are the stored carbs and how we've decreased those in your body to get you to that point. And yet every time you consume carbohydrates, there's a change. You end up going back a little bit in the direction of carb storage because even though you're consuming an amount that might be right for you at that moment, we still can't assimilate all of the energy. So there's always going to be a little bit of storage. Body's going to release a little bit of insulin, you're going to store a little bit, and then you're going to use it between meals. But since we're in a caloric deficit, if that's your goal, and we are just moving toward that center to post-center line on the metabolic continuum, or the, I should say, metabolic positioning continuum, then what's going to happen is you're just meal to meal going back a little bit. You're probably restoring some of those carbohydrates in your liver, muscle tissue, maybe a tiny amount of body fat. That really does happen. We're converting energy constantly to body fat, but not in the way that should scare you into thinking you're gaining fat. That's a total normal process. If I talked in purely dogmatic terms, saying your body's doing this and then it's doing this, just like flipping a switch, I would be wrong, and I want you guys to know the correct science behind this. So your body's constantly storing and losing energy, even at the same time. We talk about a lot in our curriculum the difference between groups of hormones like insulin and glucagon. This hormone is there for storage when we're eating too much. This is for retrieval when we need more energy from internal sources. And so you could get the idea that those things are opposing one or the other. One's off, one is on. they're both there constantly in the bloodstream being produced very situationally as we need more or less. So it's a matter of continuum again and just looking at those contexts. So when you have just consumed a meal that has carbohydrates, you've moved into a state where you have to use those first. Then you start losing or using more body fat again. So just understand that at those times when you might have a little bit higher carb meal, which is absolutely fine, we promote that a lot in our curriculum, especially the book 50 Days to Your Best Life, where we want to have an anchor meal once a day, where you have a meal that you get filled up on, not like it's gorging, eating 2 large pizzas and passing out, but you need to feel filled up once in a while. We're gonna hit meal planning here, as I mentioned this week, and so we'll get to that in a little bit. But you're going to have those times where you eat a little bit more carbohydrate, and then your remedy for that, for being back on track, is again very practical and natural. You've got those extra calories, so you're probably going to be filled up longer. You're just going to go a little bit longer before your next meal to give yourself a chance to use that energy. That's a good habit, just to start understanding what's happening in my body. So I'm never being caught off guard, I'm never surprised or unknowing in terms of what's happening and what those results are. Physiology, when it comes to weight loss and weight maintenance, should be so well understood by you that it becomes very predictable, very consistent, and not very alarming. You should never get to those situations where you're just frustrated not knowing what's happening. You should always have a good idea what's happening because you understand some of this stuff. So, we've moved from getting you to that place in the metabolic continuum, the metabolic positioning continuum, where you are losing weight now. You're into stored body fat, you're rocking along. Now you understand how even you're going to move a little bit to the left toward carb saturation again at larger meals, and then this way. We're going to eventually, very soon, talk even about having planned indulgences. How do I keep my metabolism higher? Well, sometimes we need to have a larger day. Some people call these, cheat meals or cheat days or things like that. A lot of those axioms are pretty misleading, and some of their practices are flat out harmful and will hurt your goals pretty seriously at times. So we're going to talk about how to do that. But for now, know that you are constantly moving around. And what if I want to get a little bit further into extra body fat loss? I just alluded to the fact that if you eat too much carb, you could end up just delaying your next meal. Give your body a chance to use that before you're eating again. Well, what if I just kind of stretch out my meals anyway, just so I can burn more body fat? Absolutely possible. That's when you run into the problem, though, of maybe just eating too little bit and then getting too hungry, then unwantingly eating too much, binging, that sort of thing. So you got to be very careful. And then also, if you start eating too few meals a day, although this is not going to be a big factor unless you're way down on the intermittent fasting side, you can end up slowing down your metabolism chronically, which we would not want to do. But you can definitely move to a little bit faster pace just by saying, I usually eat, at the 3rd or 4th hour here. I'm going to stretch that another 30 minutes. Or even just learning the habit that a little hunger is okay. I was going to eat here, but I'm starving. Maybe I should just eat my next meal now because I'm so hungry. I guarantee if you just drink a little water, get busy doing something else, that first hunger pang will go away, and 10 minutes later, you'll or even an hour later, you'll say, wow, I was so hungry then, and now I still haven't eaten, and the hunger went away. So learning to manage those cues is very important for the long term, making sure that you can really sustain your progress and so forth. So absolutely, you can stretch out toward the loss side of that continuum, but be careful, watch for those cues, make sure it's not just, a little bit of hunger and instead of massive depletion and hypoglycemia and blood sugars getting too low. That's where I would want you to be careful. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight into metabolic positioning and how you can use it as a tool, not just to understand what's happening, but to proactively move around so that you're hitting your goals a little bit better. So thank you guys. Come back tomorrow and we'll be hitting some meal planning.